Everyone just people are dying.
Hello and welcome to Brave New Foundation's Rethink Afghanistan debate series. Today I'm joined by Katrina vanden Heuvel, editor of The Nation, and Lawrence Korb, a senior fellow at the Center for American Progress. Today's debate topic was submitted to us at rethinkafghanistan.com by Lee from Attleboro, Massachusetts. Here it is. We've all heard comparisons made between the war in Afghanistan and the war in Vietnam. Many people, including the president, have rejected this comparison as unfair and historically inaccurate. Is it a fair analogy or is it not, and why? Katrina won our coin flip, so we'll start with you. You have 1 minute.
History by analogy is often imperfect but can be useful. Let me just tick off a few similarities. As in Vietnam, we may be facing the situation where we can win every battle, but not win the war, certainly not within a time frame that is acceptable or a cost that's acceptable to the American people. We're occupying a fiercely independent and nationalistic country. Government corruption is endemic. If you remember Diem, the leader of Vietnam, and Karzai, they are not respected by many of their people. Corruption endemic. The frontiers, the borders, both countries, sealing off was virtually impossible. And the bombing campaign that we're seeing in Afghanistan has fueled anti-Americanism and turned Afghans against us. Finally, the most enormous cost and similarity is the cost that Vietnam posed to LBJ's Great Society. My greatest fear is that Afghanistan will drain America of the resources it needs to rebuild the country at this moment of economic crisis and provide
much, Katrina.
Security.
And Lawrence, we'll go for your 1 minute opening.
I don't think there's very much similarity between them at all. First of all, in Vietnam, we ended up with about 600,000 troops in the theater. We're talking about tops 50 to 60,000 Americans in Afghanistan. Number two, the Afghan people want us there, unlike Vietnam, where we were seen as the second coming of the French and supporting a corrupt government. Karzai has become more corrupt, but he was chosen by the tribal leaders in Afghanistan. They're going to have another election this summer, and if it goes well, I think this will help. And finally, we have a regional strategy, which we never had in Vietnam. We also have a comprehensive strategy, which does not rely just on military force alone.
Great. And Katrina, your response.
Yeah, Larry, so far we're not looking at 500,000 troops as we're committed in Vietnam. We're looking at 50 to 60,000, yet escalation is a very slippery slope. We know that from history. And though there are only approximately 650 U.S. troop deaths so far in Afghanistan compared to 58,000 in Vietnam, I think it's very important to remember that that figure of 650 is a higher death toll than was the case after 9 years of U.S. involvement in Vietnam. Also, on Afghan support for the U.S. occupation, again, it's not 2001 anymore. And though the Taliban, most of the Taliban is despised, the opposition to U.S. occupation has grown exponentially. And we should exploit the hatred of the Taliban, the core elements, and not become an occupying force, but become one that is involved in the reconstruction in a non-military way of the country and the region.
All right. And Lawrence, your 1 minute response.
Well, I think the United States is adopting a counterinsurgency strategy in Afghanistan, which we didn't do till very late in the war in Vietnam. We also have more than 30,000 troops from other nations, which we never had in Vietnam. It's also a NATO exercise, and while our NATO countries may not be giving us as many troops as we want, they are providing training forces for the Afghan military and police. They're also providing a lot of economic aid.
What we've seen in this last week, and I defer to Lawrence Korb, but what we've seen with Defense Secretary Gates's military budget represents the most dramatic shift in U.S. military thinking since the end of Vietnam. We are now focused on counterinsurgency and low-intensity conflict. That will be our military's principal combat missions. That has repercussions for the U.S. role in the world. Finally, if we continue to escalate militarily in Afghanistan, not only will we destabilize Pakistan, drain America of the resources it needs to rebuild this nation, but as Lawrence said, we are going to have risks with European allies. We need to re-engage wisely. They understand the limits of military power, and we should understand that as well.
Thank you very much, Katrina.
Thank you.
We'll go to Lawrence for your 30-second summation.
The United States needs to stay the course in Afghanistan until it achieves its two objectives. One is to prevent Afghanistan from being used as a haven to attack ourselves and our allies around the world, and the other is from becoming a failed state that destabilizes the region. And I'm confident with the comprehensive strategy, including military, we can get this done in about 18 months.
Thank you for joining us for today's debate. And thanks, of course, to our debaters, Katrina vanden Heuvel and Lawrence Korb. Visit us online at rethinkafghanistan.com for more videos and debates. What questions do you want answered about the war in Afghanistan? Submit the questions you would like to have answered in congressional hearings at rethinkafghanistan.com.